up, y'all? It's Hakim back. First of all, I want to apologize to you guys. It's been a while since I released a video. Like, I've just had a lot going on in my life. I had exams, I had school, I had work, so I've been kind of off. But I'm back, and inshallah, I'll be releasing a couple videos. Like, I have so much that I want to share with you guys, but we'll come back. And today I'm doing something a little different. As you can see by the title and the thumbnail, I'm going to be reading this book. It's called Leading Men by Christopher Castellani, by Christopher Castellani. It's called Leading Men. I'm trying to better myself philosophically and intellectually, but I'm also trying to better the way I talk to people. Being an introvert, I find it a little difficult to express myself and express my opinions and my thoughts, and that's one of the reasons why I started this YouTube channel, to help myself, become better in how I can express myself to people and how people can see me. As you know, that we live in a society where you have to interact with people like on a daily. So if you can't intellectually express yourself reasonably, it affects you, in school, at work, and that kind of thing. So there's this trend that has been going on, and I felt like I should dig in. And so I'm going to be reading this book for 15 minutes. Yeah, let me set a timer here. And we're good to go. So let me give you a little synopsis about this book. It's based in Portofino in Italy in the year 1953, in July. So the synopsis is: at a glittering party thrown by Truman Capote, literal sensation Tennessee Williams and his longtime lover Frank Mello meet the enigmatic Anja Komblagren, an aspiring Swedish actress. Their encounter will alter the course of their lives forever, spanning half a century and featuring a dazzling cast of characters, from Anna Mangani cooking pasta amatriciano in a sun-kissed kitchen in Rome, to Luciano Viscontini barking orders on his latest film set. Leading Men is a heartbreaking novel about life in the shadows of greatness, and a moving retelling of one of the great love stories of the 20th century. Yeah, so that's a little synopsis of the book, and this is the cover. It's a pretty interesting book. Like, it has a very extraordinary cover and that kind of thing. So I think I'm going to have fun. So let's commence with chapter 1. As you can see, the title is The Little Horse. Truman was throwing a party in Portofino, and Frank wanted to go. The invitation came in mid-July, slipped between parentheses in long, gossipy paragraphs of his letter to 10, as if daring him to acknowledge it. Frank read the letter in 10's absence. He had been stuck for weeks in their stuffy fourth floor apartment on Via Firenze, waiting for him to get back from Spain, while on the loud streets below, the real Romans escaped for the mountains. He replied to Truman with a brief telegram, and then he called the finest hotel in town, the Splendido, to book a room. He auditioned various linen jackets and swim trunks and hats in the mirror above the dresser, mended 2 pairs of tan socks, and walked their silks down to the cleaners. When 10 returned home to find their bags lined up in the hall, packed for another trip, he would protest. He was sweet on Frank again after their 3 weeks apart. A drive in the jag up the coast of Linguiri, far from the melting heart of the Central, could only make things sweeter. They took one last walk through the Villa Borghese. They followed 2 boys. The dark one, Tens, the blonde for Frank. Down the Spanish steps and out the eastern side to the Corso, pulled along by the smoothness of their elbows. Not a hint of saggy skin on Ten's boy. His long arms, stunned by lazy days on the beach as austere, or on Frank's, a Swiss. Who could say where the Swiss got that scar? New and pink across the knob of the elbow, or where he had spent his own empty afternoons. Who could say he was a Swiss at all and not from some disappointing place like Minnesota? Who could say the scar didn't come from an iron fence he had trembled over, running from a cuckold in Lunguno? His wife in the doorway clutching her robe and pleading for mercy. They could say, Frank and 10, walking at a safe distance behind the boys, as they liked so very much to do evenings after dinner, those summers they lived in Rome, inventing lives for the Italians, inventing lives for themselves. It's what 10 was famous for. It was one of the many happy ways they passed their time together. They brought back the dark one, Mario, to Via Firenze, a Sicilian like Frank, it turned out, but at least he wasn't American. As he hastily slipped on his espadrilles, color rising on his cheeks, Frank said to him, "You've just slept with one of the world's greatest writers." And because Mario had heard of Tennessee Williams, he stayed for the coffee and pastries Frank brought onto the terrace. Soon, Mario grew tiresome, as they all did, talking of his mother, who expected him home, who worried. There was always a mother, and they watched with relief as he and his tight elbows descended the stairs. He wasn't the first Mario, of course. Over the years, they forgot their names, but not the scars, not their scars, or their attitudes, or their stories they had told as they lay between them late into the night. Sometimes on their evening walks, the streets salty and flickering with shadows, they would spot one of the Marios in a piazza, with his pack of friends laughing, his arm slung over a girl's shoulder. If the Mario noticed them, he would turn his face away, or shoot back a look of defiance and shame and fear, with which enlarged them. They left Rome with this, big as elephants, the heat and the storm behind them, the top down on the jug for Pontifino. Frank slept most of the way, his head on Ten's lap, and then again with a skiff from Raparo. Though Ten kept nudging him awake to point out the houses on the cliffs. "You like the orange?" he asked. "The yellow? No? The blue? Up top? I'm shopping, Frankie. Any of this could be ours." Truman had rented an apartment a few steps from the harbor, above the Delfino restaurant, which Frank and Ten passed on their way up to the hill to the Splendido. 10 paid the boat guy to carry their luggage, and when the hill got too steep, Frank dropped the heavy case with the typewriter. He didn't like it when another guy did work for him that he could do himself. A guy who would have been him if he had never left Jersey. The Splendido was first a monastero, the boat guy told them. And now look at it. Ches Patacolo, the place the Clark Gabo drinks his brandy to a view. 10 went straight to the desk as usual. and Frank arranged their dress shirts on the hanger and brought their shoes down for shining and stole another hour for a nap. He had never felt so tired in the middle of the afternoon, and he chalked it up to being 30. But it's possible. No doctor was ever able to tell him for sure, one way or the other, that the trouble had already started in his lungs. When he woke up, 10 offered him a pill. 10 had as many pills as Italy had houses on the water. But Frank wasn't taking pills. Not then. Instead, he smoked another cigarette and paid the boat guy to drive him over the mountain to Paraji Beach, where he swam to find his strength and clear his head. They didn't like Truman much, but Frank didn't hate him the way 10 did. Or maybe 10 did hate Truman. It was hard to know for sure with 10. It was a job in itself keeping track of who he was angry with and who was jealous of him, whose parties he was looking forward to and whose they have to make up some excuse to get out of. Frank's official job was 10's secretary, but even his secretary didn't have a reason for being in Portofino other than to stop by Truman's party, and he didn't know when he would be leaving. There wasn't much Frank knew in the summer of 1953. Least of all, how long he and 10 might last. In those years, there was no such thing as early, late, or on time. They went from place to place on a magic carpet. Dropped here, dropped there. Women in electric dresses. Men in monkey suits and bow ties made of white silk. Cognac, cigars, wine. That sky turquoise even when it was grey. Because 10 had no mind and little use for schedules and logistics and coordinates, he needed Frank to organize the day they walk, the coming days, and even the days before. The dinner they had had in London, 10 swore on Mother Edwina's grave they had had it in Chicago. The party for the sweet bud of youth tryout in Philadelphia, he remembered as the one in New Haven for Camille or Rial. The life of Tennessee Williams was a memory play in which memory was a jumble. It was bodies he had remembered, bodies they remembered together. His body and Frank's, the Southern gentleman and the little horse, the bodies of all the Marios from Key West to Marrakesh. When it came to matters of the body, Frank and 10 trusted each other like soldiers. At the Delfino, Frank lost track of him the first minute. 10 couldn't walk into a room without someone sweeping him up into the crowd. How many times had Frank stood at the edge of the crowd as if on a shore, watching him drift farther and farther out, his head bobbing on the waves, glancing back just once to meet his eyes. How many times had Frank found himself in an overflowing room like this one, greeting guests as they arrived, recognizing their faces from movies and backstages of theaters? How many times had these people walked in, looked around, saw Frank, saw somebody, spotted somebody over his shoulder, and then headed upstairs? A brass band started up. Frank danced with a French girl whose uncle watched from the bar. Girls liked to dance with Frank, and he with them. He had a way with a speed and a twirl and a catch and a bow. And this French girl, she could follow. That wasn't always the case with girls, even the fancy brought-up girls, but dancing with the clumping ones, the Clydesdales, he called them. Even that was better than dancing with a guy, which he and 10 never did anyway. I'm lost.
Oh, there are so many things, let me tell you.
even never did anyway. Not with each other, at least, not even in Provincetown. He saw the world like that a lot then. What he did with 10, what he had done with the girls. He had his hands all over the Frenchy martini until he noticed the uncle giving him the stink eye. He let her spin into some other man's arms. He brought a whiskey over to the uncle. Not bad looking himself once he relaxed, and the stink eye left his eye, and they got to talking. They'd both been at Guadalcanal. They traded stories loud over the music. When it became clear to the uncle that there was no money in franc for his precious martini, oh, my alarm. My alarm just went off. Let me stop that. I was on page 5, and okay, as I promised, it had to be 15 minutes, and that's been fetish. So I don't know, I mean, make another video with this book. I was feeling good, I had gotten into the vibe and into the book. I've always loved reading, so it's a pretty nice book. But I may try another book for the next episode, or I may continue with this. Let me know in the comments, do you want to hear more of this book, or should we try another one like this one? This one's called Nevada Bar, The Blood Law. It's also a fiction, and it's actually a New York Times bestseller. Let me know in the comments, which one of the two would you want me to? Should I continue with Leading Men, or for the next episode should I try a different book? Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, tell me what else you want to see, tell me what you think about my reading. I'm just trying to better myself, I'm just trying to be a better communicator and that kind of thing. So catch you guys in the next one. Bye.